Here is an example of a hypothesis test for two samples using summarized data. You'll recognize this data if you watched the earlier videos for confidence intervals. And earlier, using a confidence interval, we found that these two are in fact different. Awesome. Well, what should happen is I should get the same conclusion using a hypothesis test. So using a hypothesis test, I should show that the two samples are different. Okay, so what I would have is my null is that they're equal. And I know that I'm using the mu notation. That's just the standard notation that is used. And over here, I'm going to say that they're not equal. Okay, awesome. The rest of this, I'm going to fill in from StatCrunch, but I've got to use that summarized data in StatCrunch. All right, so here we go. So stat, t-stats, two sample with summary. My first group was 3.6, 0.24, and 30. My second one is 3.8, 0.29, and 25. Okay, now we're going to do a hypothesis test. So I want to click hypothesis test, and you don't have to touch anything. Just leave it. We want it to equal 0. Okay, so now I'm going to hit compute. And boom, there we have it. Our degrees of freedom when you're doing two samples is super, super, super funky. So we're just going to round it and call it 46.6. We'll call my t-stat negative 2.5 and my p-value 0.0084. So let's go ahead and write those down. Okay, where the heck is my pen? Okay, so my t-stat was negative 2.75. My degrees of freedom, if you're believing me, is 46.6. And the p-value is really what I care about. Okay, we got that it's less than 5%. That means that we reject the null. If I reject the null, I'm saying that the two are statistically different. So I would write as my conclusion, according to our data, the two means are statistically different. And again, it matches what we got, the same conclusion from our confidence interval. That is always the case. It should match. So if you got that your confidence interval was different, then your hypothesis test should say it's different. If I got my confidence interval said they were the same, my hypothesis test should say that they're the same. Okay, so we're going to do one more example start to finish, but we're going to use the listed data.